What happens when family drama collides with wedding chaos? Join me as I navigate the tricky waters of hosting family for a wedding filled with unexpected twists and emotional confrontations. A wedding dilemma. So here I am, caught in the whirlwind of my brother's impending wedding. I mean, who knew wedding planning could be so chaotic? I'm 42, a single mom, juggling work, kids, and life, and suddenly I find myself in a position I never thought I would be, hosting my brother's fiance's family for the weekend. You see, my brother, Brian, 38, has a fiancée named Diane, who's been in his life for almost 5 years now, and let me tell you, I have my doubts about her. It all began with her outrageous claims about her ability to have children. I remember the day Brian told us Diane had said she couldn't get pregnant because her uterus was removed. I mean, how does that even make sense? But then, lo and behold, they now have 2 kids, 4 and 2 years old, despite her insistence on those miracle pregnancies. It's all a bit much, right? I've watched Diane manipulate everyone around her, including my brother, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions. So when she asked me if her brother and his family could stay with us for the wedding weekend, I had to put my foot down. I live 3 hours away from the venue, and they expect me to entertain this family I barely know? No thanks. And let's not forget the kids. They have 4 of them, all under 10. I can already imagine the chaos. What would I do with them while the adults are off celebrating? I just couldn't shake off that uneasy feeling. But when I told Diane and Brian my reservations, they were persistent. Please, it's family, they said. My heart sank. I wanted to be supportive, but this felt wrong on so many levels. I just knew I was going to be stuck babysitting while they partied it up. And honestly, I didn't even trust these people. I had met them once, and that was enough for me to feel a little uneasy. As I weighed the situation, I realized the more I thought about it, the less I wanted to host them. They couldn't stay with Diane's parents either, which raised a huge red flag for me. Why not? What was going on in that family? With my boyfriend offering to stay and help, I felt a little less anxious about the prospect. But still, my gut told me to say no. So I did. But the fallout was far from over. Part 2. The backlash begins. After I delivered my firm but polite refusal to Diane and Brian, the calls and texts started pouring in. It was overwhelming, to say the least. Diane's tone was frantic as she berated me for being cruel when she had so much on her plate. I wanted to scream, "Lady, I have my own life to manage." I tried to calmly explain my reasons, but it felt like talking to a brick wall. Even as I stood my ground, I could sense the mounting pressure from both sides of the family. Looking back, I realized I was just trying to protect my space and my kids. I imagined their chaotic brood running around my house, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to risk my kids being pulled into some babysitting arrangement during what should be a joyous occasion. Plus, Diane had already promised them the pool house without even asking me first. Excuse me? It was like they assumed I would just roll over and accept whatever they threw my way. I felt myself thinking, what is wrong with these people? It was maddening. As I navigated the storm, I decided to reach out to my other brother, hoping he might have a solution. I suggested he and his family stay with me instead. I was desperate to shift the focus away from Diane's family, but I also felt guilty for feeling this way. I started to wonder if I was indeed the villain in this story. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, I received a text from Diane that left me speechless. She was inviting us back to the wedding. I was stunned. It felt like a half-hearted attempt to make it right. But was it sincere? Or was she just trying to manipulate the situation further? I was torn. My kids and I had already made plans, and frankly, I didn't want to be part of the chaos any longer. Part 3. The decision time. With the wedding just around the corner, I felt the pressure mounting. Diane's invite had landed like a bombshell, and my gut instinct was still screaming at me to stay away. I decided to sit down with my kids and discuss the situation openly. "What do you guys think? Should we go or not?" I asked, trying to gauge their feelings. They were all on the same page as me. No way did they want to deal with the family drama. I had my answer, but now came the hard part, conveying our decision to Diane. I steeled myself and picked up the phone. As I dialed, my heart raced. Would she understand? Would she lash out again? When I finally spoke to her, it felt like stepping into a lion's den. I told her, "We're not coming. We have plans." Her reaction was exactly what I expected. Disappointment wrapped in a thinly veiled accusation that I was being unreasonable. "Why can't you just help out this one time?" she pleaded. I could feel the tension in my shoulders creeping up. I took a deep breath and reminded her of all the reasons I had said no in the first place. But all she heard was rejection. The conversation spiraled into her crying and blaming me for never giving her a chance. But did she even realize how manipulative she had been? As our conversation ended, I hung up feeling a mix of frustration and relief. I was standing my ground, but at what cost? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. I had a sinking suspicion that they might show up uninvited, thinking they could just drop the kids off at my house. I need to prepare myself for that possibility, but how? Part 4. Setting boundaries. The days leading up to the wedding were tense. I felt like I was on high alert, waiting for Diane and her family to make a surprise appearance. So I decided to take action and set some boundaries. First, I reached out to Diane's dad, the only decent person I had met in her family, to make sure he understood my position. I didn't want rumors flying around that I was the villain. I wanted to be clear that I wasn't about to be manipulated into hosting a family I barely knew. I also thought about installing a doorbell camera. The last thing I needed was Diane showing up at my door with a gaggle of kids, expecting me to play host. I felt a bit paranoid, but honestly, I was just trying to protect my home and my kids. I knew that if I didn't take these precautions, I might end up in a situation I'd regret. Meanwhile, my family was divided. Some supported my decision, while others thought I was being snobbish. I couldn't believe the audacity of some people. I had worked hard to create a safe and comfortable home for my kids, and I wasn't about to let some strangers disrupt that. Then, just when I finally thought I could breathe, I received another text from Diane. She was frustrated, claiming that I was being unreasonable and that I needed to understand their financial struggles. But didn't they have other options? Why was it my responsibility to fix their problems? I felt a wave of annoyance wash over me. I was tired of being the scapegoat for their poor planning. Part 5. The wedding day approaches. The wedding day was fast approaching, and so was my anxiety. I could feel the tension in the air, and I was preparing myself for anything. Would Diane's family show up at my door? Would they try to guilt me into hosting them? My boyfriend was supportive, but even he could sense the storm brewing. As the weekend drew nearer, I focused on my plans for the Michigan versus Michigan State football game instead. Tailgating with my kids sounded like the perfect distraction from the chaos. But as the day drew closer, I still felt that nagging worry. I decided to text Diane one last time, clarifying that my answer was final. I didn't want to leave any room for misinterpretation. If you show up, just know that I won't be taking anyone in, I stated firmly. I could sense her frustration even through the screen. The day before the wedding, I had an uneasy feeling in my stomach. I could only imagine what drama might unfold. Was Diane going to try to manipulate my brother into convincing me to change my mind? I couldn't shake that feeling of impending doom. But I had to remind myself that I was doing what was best for my family. I was not going to let anyone walk all over me. As I prepared for the game, I was determined to enjoy the weekend, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread about the fallout from the wedding. Would my brother be angry with me? Would the rest of the family side with Diane? Part 6. A satisfying resolution. The day of the wedding arrived, and I was off to the football game with my kids, feeling a mix of excitement and relief. As we tailgated, I let go of the worries and embraced the joy of the moment. The atmosphere was electric, and I was finally able to relax. I checked my phone sporadically, half expecting a message from Diane or Brian, but nothing came. I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. Later that evening, I received a call from my dad. It was a bit awkward, but he wanted to assure me that my brother was frustrated with Diane for not handling things better. Apparently, she had tried to reach out to him, but he stood by my decision. I couldn't help but feel a wave of gratitude wash over me. I wasn't alone in this fight. After the game, I returned home to find a barrage of texts from Diane, all filled with guilt and frustration about our absence. I chuckled to myself, realizing that I had made the right decision. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any longer. My kids and I had a fantastic time, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. In the end, I felt empowered to stand my ground. I had prioritized my family, and that was what mattered most. While Diane and her family remained a source of drama, I knew I wouldn't have to deal with them again anytime soon. The weekend turned out to be a celebration of family, fun, and football, and I couldn't have been happier. And as for Diane, well, I think she learned a valuable lesson about overstepping boundaries. All's well that ends well, right?